Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics. 2 weeks before the election, we are joined by one of the people at the top of the ticket, State Auditor Nicole Galloway. Welcome back to the show.
Yes, thank you.
How's the campaign going?
Things are going really well. I mean, in this campaign for state auditor, there is a clear contrast between me and my opponent. And this is a very public job interview for one of the most important positions in Jefferson City and state government.
So it's an interesting thing when you walk through your qualifications. You do have several of them. I tell you what, list them yourself. You can do it better than I can.
Sure.
What is the qualifications you have for this?
So the position of state auditor is the independent watchdog in government, auditing all levels of government, holding them accountable for how they spend your money and how they make decisions on your behalf. I am a CPA and a certified fraud examiner. I did this work in the private sector before ever getting into public service. And in my time as auditor, have identified over $300 million in government waste and abuses. And because of our audits, more than 35 criminal counts have been brought against corrupt public officials in this state. We have changed the way that government works for the better, and I am proud of those accomplishments.
So it's an interesting thing. I've watched you since Governor Nixon appointed you, the way you interact with people. There's no party that's harsh. I would say that I've never really seen any party that I ever thought was negative. Some of the ads you've run, you've drawn a contrast with your opponent, some of her issues in her personal life. Tell folks why that matters.
This is, as I said, a very public job interview to be the state's top fiscal watchdog, and taxpayers expect government to live within its means, balance its checkbook, and be responsible with taxpayer dollars. My opponent has shown no ability to manage her personal or professional finances. She has been sued 7 times in the last 5 years for not paying her bills and has over $50,000 in garnishments and other judgments against her. She hasn't been truthful about her residency, her resume, and all of these things factor in to leading the state's fiscal watchdog agency. This is a direct contrast between me and my accomplishments.
So you were appointed by Governor Nixon to this job. I've been there, I guess, coming up on 3 years now, right?
Yeah.
Right about. What is something you're more proud of than anything else you've done there?
You know, we did an audit of Putnam County Memorial Hospital, and this is a hospital that's in the northern part of Missouri, small community. The community depends on it for health care and for jobs, and was financially struggling. With our audit, we found that this hospital was running a $90 million billing scheme through the hospital by this outside management company. There are now federal investigations looking into this activity. There are lawsuits to try to recoup some of that money. Rural health care is incredibly important in this state for many reasons, and I'm proud of the results that we got there.
So we'll go through, the state auditor does audits not just state government, but some of the county governments like you're talking about right now, is that correct?
That's right, we audit all levels of government, from local governments like municipal courts, school districts, cities, all the way up to large state agencies like Department of Revenue and even the governor's office. At the state agency level, we did an audit of the Department of Revenue and found that there was not an even playing field between the government and the taxpayer. When it comes to late income tax refunds. If the government is late paying you your refund back, they pay you almost no interest. But if you're late, you're paying interest upon fees upon fees. We found that in our audit and passed legislation in a bipartisan way to even the playing field between the government and the taxpayer, and I'm proud of that result.
Let me ask you a question. You were appointed by a Democrat, obviously. When you've audited under a Democrat and a Republican, one time I had a conversation with Tom Schweik, and he actually said sometimes it's easier to audit the other party. Do you think maybe the auditor's role is a more natural fit for someone from the other party?
I think people want an independent watchdog. I have shown that I audit Democrats and Republicans alike. I am tough, I am fair, and I am thorough. My point of view is to stand with the taxpayers and the citizens in this state. People work hard for what they have. They work hard to provide an opportunity for themselves and for their families. And when you see government wasting your money, sometimes just flatting out stealing it, you're very frustrated by that. I understand that directly, and it's my job to hold them accountable no matter what the party is.
Well, tell someone that's watching this down in Nixon, Missouri, what do you want to do if you get reelected, or if you get elected to this job? What is something you'd like to see done that you haven't been able to do thus far?
So we had a bill that addressed public corruption. It passed in a bipartisan way, but unfortunately it was vetoed by Governor Greitens. What this bill did was cut red tape in preventing my office from working with local law enforcement when there's known instances of public corruption. It also strengthened the penalties against public corruption. So if somebody steals your money, taxpayers will be able to recoup some of that money in an easier way. As I said, said, unfortunately, it was vetoed. We will be back again to try to pass that legislation.
So give me this. There's a Clean Missouri thing coming up. We're going to have a panel, opinion maker panel. I guess if I had to just put my finger in the air, you'll have all the Democrats for it, all the Republicans against it. Democrats will talk about the good government things that they think's in, and the Republicans talk about redistricting. If you win this race, which you're a clear frontrunner to do, you'll have to hire a state demographer. Have you read this? Are you prepared for that? And what would you look for in somebody to draw these legislative districts?
Right, so the role of the auditor in this initiative is to select a process or create a process to select a demographer or a slate of demographers and then present that to the Senate. And then the majority and the minority leader in the Senate then select a demographer to draw the legislative districts based on the candidates that we present. To me, this is not a partisan hire. This should not be based on partisan politics. I value experience, I value qualifications, and that's what I would look for in a demographer candidate. Additionally, I think because the Senate is going to play a role in selecting the demographer, they should be included in the process of the initial selection. So they're comfortable with how that happens, so they're comfortable with the candidates that are presented to them.
So let me ask you a question. Before they drew this up and made you such a key part of it, did they ask you?
No, I had nothing to do with drawing or with implementing this.
Well, you have this key part in. Do you support Clean Missouri? Will you be voting for it?
I will, and I think we have been fighting to clean up Jefferson City for a long time now, and this is an effort to do that. Let's not forget that just 5 months ago, Governor Greitens resigned from office. The ethical environment in Jefferson City has not changed and has not gotten better. I want to see it improve. With this initiative is a way to do that.
We hope you'll come back and join us again. If this passes and you're reelected, you'll be a key part of this. Hope you'll come back and tell us about the process.
Yes, thank you.
We'll be right back with our opinion maker panel. Scott Charton makes his debut, but first I want to tell you about Show Me Missouri. Go to showmemissouri.com, the history of Missouri one county at a time. If you wondered where the Hubble telescope comes from, Marshfield, Missouri, our Webster County episode, the birthplace of Senator Blunt. Showmemissouri.com, read about Webster County this week, and we'll be coming to a county near you soon. We'll be right back after this.
Violent protests, discord, anger, and hatred. It's time to move past the political fights. Ann Wagner is bringing people together, passing the most important sex trafficking bill in decades, keeping families safe. Wagner fights for better care for our veterans and defends our law enforcement and first responders. Wagner protected seniors' retirement savings and helped young families save for the future. Standing for us, Ann Wagner for Congress.
I'm Ann Wagner, and I approve this message.
All across Missouri, our new car and truck dealers are building strong local economies. When you buy a car or truck in Missouri, you're helping to support over 20,000 Missouri families who rely on the auto industry for good-paying local jobs. You're also helping fund our communities, schools, first responders, and our roads because dealers generate millions of dollars in tax revenue. Missouri's automobile dealers have been the foundation of our communities for generations and for generations to come. The Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, the heart of Missouri.
Looking to get quality insurance at a price you can afford? Now you can, thanks to CFM Insurance. Select from our broad range of farm, home, and rental property coverage. Find an agent right in your local area, as CFM is represented by a network of 200 independent agencies throughout Missouri. For personal and dependable service from a company with a history of insuring the families of Missouri that dates back to 1869, visit WeInsureMissouri.com and find an agent near you today.
It just makes sense to ensure life-saving safety improvements for our roads and highways. Like rumble strips, guardrails, highway dividers, and safer bridges. So I'm voting yes for Prop D. Let's start repairing Missouri's over 2,000 bridges in poor or weight-restricted condition. Bridges getting more dangerous every day for our families, school buses, and emergency responders to cross, with funds regularly audited and constitutionally designated. Prop D's a bargain to keep my family and yours safer.
At Ameren, Missouri, we know what light can do. It draws people together and chases monsters away. And if you shine it in the right direction, it will light the path for the next generation, showing them what their tomorrow could look like, and spotlighting the possibilities that lay in front of them. Investing in our community by lighting the way forward. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Amendment 3, the quote Bradshaw Amendment, is the wrong choice for medical marijuana. It's funded by an individual attorney and creates a research institute that only he'd chair, even though he's not a scientist.
It puts a 15% tax on medical marijuana.
The highest medical marijuana tax in the nation.
And while Bradshaw's raising our taxes, news reports show he hasn't paid his own taxes.
I'm voting no on 3.
I'm voting no on 3.
Vote no on Amendment 3.
Welcome back this week in Missouri Politics, Opinion Maker Panel Time. Joined by the White Knight of the Missouri Republican Party, Mike Hafner. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you.
That might make you the Dark Knight, Mike, of the Missouri Democrat Party. Welcome
Hey
back,
now,
sir.
I'll take it.
Gene Evans, legislator from South County and St. Louis. Welcome back.
Thanks.
And a guy I'm very glad to have here the first time, Scott Charton. Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics.
Thanks, glad to be here.
So anybody that follows you on Twitter right now knows you're involved with Prop D, trying to build some highways. Tell us about it.
Well, Prop D is on the ballot on November 6th. You're going to have to read way down on the ballot, first of all, because we have long ballot in Missouri this time, and the amendments come before the propositions, and the candidates come before the amendments. Even the judges come before the ballot issues. But if you get down to Prop D, think D for drive. That's to make the roads better in Missouri and to fix our roads.
Mike Kelly, you talk a lot of politics. It seems like a common sense thing to do. It's a gas tax to increase the roads. Does it pass?
Well, it's common sense. That's why it's probably in jeopardy here. I mean, we haven't passed a common sense tax increase in 25 years in this state. I'm hopeful we're going to do it. And none of your listeners, no matter where they live in this state, have to be told how bad the infrastructure and roads are in this state. So I'm hopeful that it's going to pass. I'm also encouraged that Republicans are out putting their name behind a tax increase. That's important, that we're finally seeing them stand up for something that's important for investment in our state.
Like Hafner, I have seen a few folks pop up, more of the maybe socially liberal Republicans, attacking some of the tax measures. I mean, I think a tax, anything you have to vote on the ballot for, no is where you want to be. This is a yes. Tell me about the challenge of getting that to 51%.
Well, look, this campaign has brought together a really diverse group of coalitions to support it, from labor organizations to the Missouri Chamber. And when you look at what other options are there out there, there's not. We've done the studies that the legislature has done. They've all come back to this. The people that are opposed, tell me what your solution is. This is the time to do it and to get it done. It's going to get done because of the leadership of the governor and because of the Prop D campaign. They're running a great race.
Well, you have to also look at Mike Kehoe, the lieutenant governor. This has been his issue for a very long time. He's not just talked about it, he's been out on the trail himself. I mean, I think that makes a big difference.
Absolutely. And when was the last time a unified governor and lieutenant governor have been on the same page, traveling in every corner of the state on an issue, advocating for its passage? This is a big deal.
You know, it's almost like right now you have adults in charge taking on adult issues. Infrastructure is an adult issue. It's something your district, from everywhere from your district in South St. Louis County to folks in South Ripley County deal with. It's a real issue that it faces the state. Does it pass, though?
I think it's going to pass. You know, talking to people and, you know, you talk about conservatives coming on board with this. I mean, one of the fundamental responsibilities of a conservative government is infrastructure and law enforcement. And those are two things that you can't give to the private sector. The private sector is not going to come along and build a road across the state of Missouri. And we can't have vigilantes out there, you know, enforcing laws. So it's going to supply money for the highway patrol and then also support our infrastructure and our roads. And it needs to be done.
Michael, let's talk U.S. Senate race. You are somebody that actually knows Claire McCaskill. It looks to me like she's probably had a lead at some point that's evaporated. It seems like every time she gets momentum, some national Democrat does something very stupid and like pushes her back a little bit.
Hardly. Look, Claire McCaskill's always been in a tight race. I don't care what race it's been for the United States Senate. It's always been a race, and I hear all these Republicans say, she's not going to win, we're going to win, how big's this win going to be? She always pulls a rabbit out of her hat. And she's going to do the same thing. And the reason she's going to do it is because she's out doing the work. She's had over 50 town hall meetings all across the state, in rural parts of the state, where people don't even listen and believe in her policies, but are there, and she's listening to them. Hence the reason she's got the voting record she has that really is reflective of Missouri. That's the reason Claire McCaskill is going to be reelected.
Is it reflective of Missouri, though?
Absolutely reflective of November. She's going back for her third term. What's more reflective than being sent by the people 3 times?
Mike Hafner, I've been to one. I've been to a town hall a while back during the Obamacare stuff in Poplar Bluff. She took questions from a person I know. They were not staged questions. It was real. No one would pick these questions. These were not things a politician would want to answer. I watched one in South County earlier this year. These were real. She does do the work. I don't think even the most partisan Republicans say she doesn't do the work. But I think a fair person might question, does she vote like a Missourian would vote?
Well, look, you look at the U.S. Senate map, just a few months ago there was a number of toss-ups that are now back in the Republican column that are solidly Republican, trending that way. Josh Hawley is the same way. And I think that Claire, to Mike, what Mike was saying, is a survivor, and she has pulled out a lot of tricks in the past campaigns. But here's the fact: she's been in office for 36 years. Scott, that's longer than I've been alive. When voters go into the ballot box on November 6th, they're going to see Claire McCaskill's name and say, this time is the last time.
Gene Evans, I mean, I think you're somebody in office yourself that takes the job seriously. Claire McCaskill's a serious person. She knows the issue. She does do the work. I think that any fair person would give a hat tip to the town hall she's had. That's going out and seeing the state. But it does have a feel that maybe the national party is too big a burden to carry right now in Missouri.
Well, I'm out knocking doors all the time and talking to people, and just in the last few weeks, things have sort of turned. I'm definitely seeing a surge for Hawley. The other thing is, it's still a change election, and so the frustration that people are feeling or seeing, frustration on the national level, of some people just want to change. So I think that works against her. She is also a very astute politician, so you can't count her out, but I think this might be the year.
Scott Charton, now, you've covered town halls before. You've spent a lot of your career covering these politicians. I think even any fair person gives her some credit for, like Mike said, doing the work.
Claire McCaskill has less fear than any politician I've ever seen in Missouri. Claire McCaskill is gutsy and she's tough and she can handle headwinds. So I am not counting Claire McCaskill out. It's true, Josh Hawley is probably the smoothest candidate and one of the most crafty candidates. He certainly has wind at his back with the national political trends. I will never count Claire McCaskill out until the last vote is counted.
I think he's done a good job making this race about her.
Well, he has to, because he has no record to run on. Remember, this is a guy less than 2 years ago was telling us he wasn't going to be a ladder climber. He wanted to be our Attorney General. He was going to stay there and do the jobs of the Missourian people. Who in their right mind would hire a brain surgeon because they had no experience? If we needed experience in government, we need it now more than ever. You want to talk about change, you're exactly right. People are frustrated with the direction this national Washington's going, led by Donald Trump, led by this ridiculous movement that's happening, that's not listening to people, that's out there taking care of the interests of the wealthiest Americans and forgetting our farmers by imposing tariffs and ridiculousness on them. Claire McCaskill is going to mop the floor with Josh Hawley.
That's a bold statement. Mike Hafner, it looks to me like Josh Hawley has ran a campaign to make it about the incumbent pretty successfully. And his record, there is the ladder ad. I don't know how you talk about that one way or the other. But the guy has brought a very good campaign. I'd say he's maybe a half step ahead, and it kind of, to me, started with the Kavanaugh thing and how the Democrats just shot it in the foot. Then they took the shoe off and shot it again.
I think there was a little uneasiness early on with Hawley's campaign, but I think he's made up the ground. I think he's trending up, and I think on November 6th he's going to come out ahead on this. And whether that's because of a post-Kavanaugh enthusiasm bump or because he's in the right place at the right time, I think he's well suited for the office, and I think he's going to win.
Gene Evans, you saw an incident where the immigration police, ICE, were busting about a dozen people in the country illegally right near your district, on Interstate 44 near St. Louis. It's an amazing thing. Trump said build a wall. People said that's, you don't need a wall. Then there's 5,000 people walking toward the Mexican-American border. It's almost like Donald Trump knew what he was talking about.
Yeah, the immigration thing is a big deal in my district, and a lot of it has to do with the drugs. So we've seen a lot of overdoses. A lot of them have to do with heroin and fentanyl, and people relate that to illegals coming across the border. That doesn't mean that everyone coming across the border is doing illegal drugs, but we need to have safety measures. People support legal immigration, but we can't have all these people coming across. We don't have any place to put them. There's nowhere for them to go, and we don't have any way to vet them. So there has to be some sort of security, because people that live in the middle of America are affected by these things.
Well, Kelly, you're a big-time city political analyst. I'm just a simple white trash West Butler County hillbilly.
Right.
Donald Trump said build a wall. You said, oh, there's no need to build a wall. You have a hillbilly friend that said, well, what if like 1,000 people tried to get in the country at once? The wall will come in handy. You said, well, but that will never happen.
You know what the concern of most Missourians are right now? Is all the farmers that are looking to walk out of the state because the president is putting them out of business. Manufacturers who have tariffs imposed on them now and can't compete. There's failed policies that are coming from Washington, D.C. that aren't selling in middle of Missouri. And Claire McCaskill's standing up for it, finding common sense solutions. That's the reason, Scott, there's going to be an energy in November. It's not just going to be a blue wave, it's going to be a Claire wave that's going to happen in Missouri.
There is a blue wave in the city of St. Louis, am I right? I think there is an energy to turn out for a blue wave. How far out from St. Louis does that wave go?
Well, you're going to see it. Look, what's going to happen is Claire McCaskill is going to put together the same coalition she always does. She's going to have the support from the urban areas. Mm-hmm. She's going to have support from the central part of the state. She's going to have support from Springfield, Missouri. The margins in rural Missouri, because of the failed policies of the Republicans in the Missouri legislature and the Republicans in Washington, D.C., are going to give those margins that are going to put Claire McCaskill back in the United States Senate.
How important is Lacey Clay to that effort of hers?
I think the most important person that's going to drive turnout in the Democratic primary is not one politician in this state. He's sitting in Washington. Yeah.
There's an ad Claire McCaskill put on the airwaves. She's not one of those crazy Democrats. You mentioned being fearless. That's part of it. I actually don't think she's one of those crazy Democrats. You've observed her for a long time. Are you surprised by the ad? It did seem a little off, but not if you really pay attention to her in rural Missouri.
It actually is very honest, and that's Claire McCaskill. I mean, she will take the varnish off, both her opponent, but she is what she seems to be. I'll give you an example because I'm a supporter of Prop D, okay? Mm-hmm. Claire McCaskill has been out. Any Democrat who's out there running and talking about a tax increase, they're playing right into the opposition playbook, but Claire McCaskill gets it that we've got to fix roads. That's a practical thing. And so she says, I'm for Prop D. She said that publicly and was the first statewide official other than Mike Kehoe who's been right out front on that.
Well, the crazy Democrats, who's she talking about? Is she talking about my colleagues in the House? Is she talking about my opponent? I mean, I heard that ad on the way down here today, and I'm like, who are you talking about? You're talking about your own colleagues. I don't refer to my colleagues as crazy Republicans.
Maybe you should sometimes. Mike Hafner, you're in the room. We have about 9 days left to campaign. What do you tell Josh Hawley should be his closing argument?
Look, Claire McCaskill's been there too long. He's driven home that message. Time and again, she's been on the wrong side of Missourians, whether it's on judges, whether it's on taxes, rural policy, farm policy, and her time's up, and this is the chance to put a new generation of conservative leadership in Washington to represent Missourians.
You know, an old buddy of mine, Wendell Bailey, he's from Willow Springs, Mike, that's in South Missouri. He said he started his career saying it's time for a change, and he ends it saying experience counts. So I guess it's all how you do it. Tell him about Clean Missouri. I had a good friend of yours, David Barklage, on the show. You said the word Clean Missouri, he goes nuts. We had Nicole Galloway on. If you were going to have a Democrat hire a demographer, it's probably her. She's a reasonable person. Why is Clean Missouri bad? I assume you're going to say bad, right?
It's interesting as we get closer to Election Day, the kind of bedfellows that the anti-Clean Missouri, Clean Missouri is attracting. You've got Missouri Farm Bureau, you've got the cattlemen's, and then you have Congressman Clay that have essentially come out and all have said no, they're not voting for it. There is a danger in it in changing districts, redistricting in a very, very dangerous way, and taking power out of the hands of rural Missouri or minority districts. And that is a concern that a lot of people have. And as people learn about it, they are getting turned off very, very quickly to Clean Missouri.
Gene Evans, every time we've come on here and this has come up, you've been one that sounded the alarm. Very early on, this was not a good idea. Right. The ethics stuff, you're in Jeff City. I don't think any lobbyist or legislature cares if they pass the ethics stuff or not. It's always about how they draw the districts, right?
Right, and I'm in a swing district, so I'm in a 50-50 district. It doesn't really affect me, but to look at how they have to redraw these districts, I mean, if you look at a map of Missouri, all the Democrats are congregated around the urban suburban areas, and so you would have to draw these like squiggly spaghetti lines to make these. You actually have to gerrymander to get them to be 50-50 districts.
But on the converse side, I've seen Ryan Silby, you've seen Caleb Browden. A lot of times very good legislators come from swing districts because you do have to work it harder.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with that, but it's going to be very difficult for someone who is from, say, St. Charles to represent the interests of constituents that are in North St. Louis County as well as Columbia, and that's essentially what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to draw these long lines, and it just doesn't. It's just not going to work. And plus, it's against what we said we want to do, which is we don't want to gerrymander. You're going to have to gerrymander in order to get these districts that way. I mean, how are you going to create a 50-50 district outside of Joplin?
I think you have to go into not only Oklahoma, maybe Mexico, right? Okay. Mike Kelly, you've been around these processes a long time. Isn't gerrymandering just in the eyes of the beholder?
Well, I would imagine that folks who've packed us all into one or two different districts. I mean, we're sitting in St. Louis area today.
Yeah.
There are districts that are literally 90% Democratic. There's not a Republican district like that in the country, in the rest of the state. We've got to find a more fair process that's more representative of what Missouri looks like. Because what's happening right now is we have supermajorities in the Missouri legislature that's not reflective of where the bulk of the population is. And so I think Clean Missouri, it's got some issues. It is a fairer solution than what we're living under now.
In all seriousness, though, you've been around these processes for at least two maps, right? If you did take the state, is it a political problem or is it a geography problem? Democrats live in two densely populated areas right on the state line. It's almost impossible to draw those districts out.
I just heard the representatives say that some of the best representative comes from swing districts.
That is true, don't you?
I think it is too. We'd love to have some more swing
Sifton.
districts that we can go out and win, that
Sifton's
Democrats can go out and participate in. And unfortunately, we've been packed in, and I love it. Every 10 years, we have our Republican friends who come up and pretend like they care about the minority community for about 30 minutes, and then they run away again and go and vote against the interests of what minorities and what Democrats care about. Look, this is a time and an opportunity to clean up the process, take the politics out of it, and have fair representation.
Scott Charton, you've watched a lot of these. I've always felt like gerrymandering was who won, right? Whoever lost probably got gerrymandered.
Well, first of all, the best lawmakers are the ones who are out and in touch with their district. And I think if you have a spread out district like you're describing that would go to state border to state border, it's hard to do that.
Sure.
But I agree about a swing district. I'd like to see more of them because you have representatives like Gene Evans who go out and listen to both sides. And you have to go out and actually campaign, and you don't pay only attention to one side or the other.
Sometimes if you have a legislator and you pack too many school districts in it, you're not representing any. If you have 5 school districts, you don't represent one. I think sometimes when you cross those county lines in a rural area and you put more counties in and you cut parts of counties and somebody's got 15 counties to represent, I do think there's an issue that you can't get the quality representation.
Well, that's the case, and part of it is, you look at Sam Graves, this is congressional, not House, he's got the entire top third of Missouri, the northern third of Missouri, from the Missouri River to the Mississippi. He does great constituent work on the ground, and that is what a congressman really should do.
It is very tight, but we're pretty tight on time, so with a minute left, who won the week?
Let me tell you, it's a what won the week. And Michael Hafner referenced this. We had Governor Parson and Lieutenant Governor Kehoe out there together. Maybe it's time what won the week is the concept of a governor and lieutenant governor running on the same ticket. 25 states do it that way. We're one of 18 states that don't. It might be time to think about that because we, in Missouri,
makes a lot of sense.
Out of the last 30 years, 12 years we've had divided governor, lieutenant governor, and the others are the same.
Dana Rademan Miller,
new
chief clerk.
Great.
Yeah.
She's awesome.
Your guest at the beginning of the show, Nicole Galloway, she's the one who's right for Missouri. She's the future of the Democratic Party, too, and the future of Missouri.
Wouldn't be necessarily a bad thing. Who won the week?
Todd Richardson, home run pick by Mark Parson, Governor Parson, to be Medicaid director.
I will say Todd Richardson definitely won the week, probably the most honorable man that's ever held that gavel. Will go down highly, highly thought of in state history as he comes off to head the Medicaid program. We will see you next week for a pre-election edition. David Stillman joins us on This Week in Missouri Politics.
This Week in Missouri Politics, sponsored by the Missouri Association of Career Fire Protection Districts, Spire, and Sterling Bank.
For more than a century, the St. Louis Carpenters Union has shaped our communities. Through trusted alliances, we deliver skilled professional craftspeople while our business partners provide the kind of quality jobs that keep our economy humming. It's a blueprint that has worked since 1882. Turning Missouri into a right-to-work state stalls progress, wipes out jobs, and kills momentum. Right to work is wrong for everyone. Let's keep Missouri moving forward. Visit carpdc.org to learn more.